It began not with cheers, but with chaos. In the spring of 2006, Italian football was burning. The Calciopoli scandal had ripped through Serie A like a wildfire, consuming reputations and corroding trust. Juventus officials stood accused of influencing referees, club executives faced bans, and the foundations of Italy's footballing pride cracked beneath the weight of corruption. Headlines screamed betrayal, pundits predicted collapse. And in that storm, the Italian national team, the Azzurri, prepared for the World Cup. They were supposed to be distracted, divided, disillusioned. Instead, they became something else entirely, defiant. As the plane lifted off from Rome toward Germany, Marcello Lippi's squad carried the burden of a nation on their shoulders. Cameras flashed at Fiumicino Airport, microphones hovered near players' faces, reporters probing for fractures. Can Italy even focus on football? One asked. Fabio Cannavaro, the captain, just smiled. You'll see, he said. That quiet confidence would become their armor. The defining moment came not in Berlin, not even in the final, but in those first uneasy days of June 2006, when a wounded football nation found its pulse again. Italy's campaign began in Hanover against Ghana. The air was electric, the crowd restless, and across the pitch stood a side full of raw pace and promise. Italy needed calm. They needed control. They needed to remind the world who they were. Andrea Pirlo, elegant and unflappable, delivered. From 25 yards out, his right foot whispered to the ball, and it screamed into the net. 1-0. The Azzurri exhaled. Later, Vincenzo Iaquinta added a second, coolly rounding the keeper to seal a 2-0 win. It wasn't just victory, it was reassurance. Italy was here to play, but beneath the celebration lingered tension. In the dressing room, players' phones buzzed with news updates from home. Juventus's directors had resigned. The scandal deepened daily. Some of these same players, Buffon, Cannavaro, Zambrotta, were Juventus men. Their integrity was questioned in public, their motivation doubted. Yet on the pitch, their response was immaculate. The second match against the United States tested that resolve like nothing else. It was ugly, bruising, chaotic. A red card for Daniele De Rossi after an elbow, another for the Americans, then another. 10 men versus 9. Buffon's gloves stung with impact after impact. Cannavaro's voice echoed through the noise. Calma, calma, calm, hold shape. It ended 1-1. A match that was more battle than art. But again, Italy endured. The third group match, against the Czech Republic, was decisive. The Czechs, led by Nedved and Rosicky, were dangerous, experienced. Italy needed leadership. Fabio Cannavaro, short in stature but colossal in presence, gave them that. From the first whistle, he commanded every inch of the field, intercepting, cajoling, leading. Gianluca Zambrotta struck early, a thunderous drive after a flowing move. Then Marco Materazzi, controversial, combustible but brilliant, rose high to nod home the second. 2-0. Group winners. Statement made. As the players walked off, the murmurs shifted. Maybe, just maybe, Italy could do something extraordinary. The world didn't yet know that this team was forging something invisible but unbreakable. Trust. In a time of doubt, they trusted each other. Marcello Lippi was the architect. Silver-haired, calm and strategic, he believed not in superstition or slogans, but in structure. He rotated players constantly, a radical move for a World Cup. 12 different goalscorers would emerge by the tournament's end, the most balanced squad in the competition. For Lippi, the key was unity. Talent wins games, he told them, but only spirit wins tournaments. Behind that spirit was Buffon, the heartbeat. The Juventus keeper was under scrutiny back home due to the scandal, but in Germany he was untouchable. Against Ghana he was composed, against the United States defiant, against the Czechs impenetrable. By the end of the group stage, Italy had conceded just once, and that was an own goal. Cannavaro and Materazzi, the unlikely pairing, had formed a wall. One the serene leader, the other the unpredictable warrior. Together, they were immovable. And yet, Off the pitch, the mood was fragile. The Italian press was relentless. Every training session was dissected, every substitution questioned. But within the camp, Lippi's message never wavered. Control what you can. The rest is noise. In the quiet of the training ground, players began to believe. Francesco Totti, recovering from a broken leg, suffered just months before. Trained in silence, grimacing with every step, refusing to surrender. Pirlo and Gattuso, the artist and the soldier, rehearsed patterns of play long after teammates had gone inside. They weren't just preparing to win games, they were preparing to reclaim respect. The origins of this Italian side stretched back decades to the golden days of Catenaccio, of defensive mastery, of pragmatic beauty. Italy's football identity had always been built on discipline and design. But the 2006 team added something new: personality. Most of the squad had been molded in Serie A's golden era. Pirlo had emerged from Inter before blossoming at Milan, where Carlo Ancelotti reinvented him as a deep-lying playmaker. Totti was the eternal Roman, a man who played for the name on the front of the shirt because it matched the one on the back. Buffon, the boy wonder of Parma, had long since become the world's best goalkeeper. Cannavaro, once the kid from Naples too small to defend, was now the general. Their stories intertwined like threads in a blue tapestry. They came from different regions, rival clubs, even opposing philosophies. Yet under Lippi, those differences became strengths. The Milan contingent brought rhythm, the Juventus men discipline, the Roma players flair, the Fiorentina men hunger. It was Italy distilled, diverse, emotional, united when it mattered most. Still, the scars of scandal were deep. In interviews, players avoided the topic, but the hurt showed. When asked about calciopoli, Buffon once said, "We can't control what happens in the offices. We can only show who we are on the field." And show they did. The bond between Buffon and Cannavaro, both veterans of the 2002 heartbreak, became the spine of the team. 4 years earlier, Italy had been eliminated controversially by South Korea. That memory lingered, the injustice, the pain. It was fuel now. By the time the knockout stages arrived, Italy wasn't just playing football, they were exorcising ghosts. The round of 16 brought Australia, a team disciplined, fearless, and coached by the legendary Guus Hiddink. On paper, Italy were favourites. On grass, it was a struggle. Early in the second half, Materazzi was shown red for a sliding tackle. 10 men. 60 minutes. Pressure mounting. Cannavaro turned into a one-man wall. He intercepted everything, barked orders, and covered spaces like a man possessed. Every tackle was met with applause from teammates, every clearance a statement. And then, in stoppage time, came destiny. Fabio Grosso, the quiet left-back from Palermo, surged into the box. Lucas Neal slid in, Grosso tumbled. The whistle blew. Penalty. Francesco Totti, the injured prince, the Roman idol, stepped forward, the weight of a nation balanced on his right foot. He stared down Mark Schwarzer, drew breath, and struck. The net rippled. His arms rose to the heavens. Italy erupted. Totti later said, "That penalty wasn't just for us. It was for every Italian who was tired of feeling ashamed." The Azzurri had survived. Next came Ukraine, a quarter-final in Hamburg that promised nerves but delivered dominance. Zambrotta opened the scoring with a strike that bent physics, cutting inside and firing low. Luca Toni, the gentle giant, added 2 more. It was a masterclass in control. Buffon was unbeatable, Cannavaro unshakable, Pirlo untouchable. By now, something extraordinary was happening. The team wasn't just winning, they were evolving. Their confidence grew with each game, their cohesion tightening like a perfectly wound spring. The nation, once skeptical, now believed. Back in Rome, fans gathered in piazzas again. Flags returned to balconies. The scandals still existed, but for 90 minutes at a time, it faded. The real test, however, awaited in Dortmund. The semi-final against Germany was more than football. It was theatre. 2 footballing titans, one dream. The Westfalenstadion pulsed with national pride. German flags waved like fire, chants rolled through the stands, and yet, in the Italian end, a sea of blue held firm. The match began with ferocity. Podolski darted, close pressed, Ballack commanded. But Italy didn't flinch. Pirlo dictated tempo, Gattuso chased shadows, Buffon clawed away everything that moved. For 119 minutes, it was tension personified. Then, in one of the most iconic minutes in football history, everything changed. Pirlo received the ball at the edge of the box. Surrounded, he didn't panic. A feint, a shimmy, a glance, and then a perfectly weighted pass slid into Grosso's path. The left back curled his shot into the far corner. The net danced, and so did Italy. Grosso ran screaming, eyes wide, arms spread. Non si credo. I can't believe it. Germany was stunned. The stadium froze. But Italy wasn't done. As Germany pushed for a miracle, they left space. Del Piero broke forward, fed by Gilardino, and with one graceful swing, he lifted the ball past Lehmann. 2-0. Done. That night, Italy didn't just beat Germany, they conquered fear. For Cannavaro, it was his masterpiece. Every interception, every header, every command was perfection. For Buffon, another clean sheet. For Lippi, vindication. As the players embraced, the realization dawned. From scandal to semi-finals, from shame to history. One step remained. But in that brief calm before the final storm, the human side re-emerged. Players called home, speaking to parents, wives, children. Cannavaro's voice cracked as he told his wife, "We're going to Berlin." Totti sat quietly in the hotel, replaying that penalty in his head, smiling faintly. Lippi gathered them in a small room that night and said simply, "You've already made history. Now go and make it eternal." The journey from chaos to clarity had taken weeks, but it had taken lifetimes too. Every missed chance in 2002, every criticism, every scandal headline, it all led here. Italy would face France, Zidane, Henry, Thuram, the team that had broken their hearts in Euro 2000. Fate, it seemed, was poetic. As the world prepared for Berlin, Italy prepared for destiny. Berlin, July 9th, 2006. The night air hummed with anticipation. Over 69,000 fans filled the Olympiastadion, and millions more watched from around the world. The final stage was set, Italy versus France. Two footballing empires, both searching for redemption in their own ways. For Italy, it was about pride restored. For France, it was about one last act of brilliance from their talisman, Zinedine Zidane. From the moment the teams emerged from the tunnel, the tension was electric. The Italian players stood shoulder to shoulder, their anthem echoing through the night, eyes fierce with resolve. Cannavaro clenched his jaw. Buffon tapped the crossbar twice, his ritual. Lippi, arms folded, surveyed the scene like a general about to lead his men into history. And then, chaos from the start. Only 7 minutes in, France struck first. Malouda surged into the box, clipped by Materazzi's outstretched leg. The referee pointed to the spot. Zidane stepped forward, serene as always, but what followed was audacity. He chipped the ball with a Panenka-style penalty that kissed the underside of the crossbar before bouncing over the line. 1-0 France. Buffon froze, the ball behind him, disbelief flickering across his face. It was a goal so beautiful it almost felt cruel. But Italy, true to their newfound identity, did not crumble. They responded with courage. Corner to Italy. Pirlo stood over the ball, eyes scanning the box, his right boot delivering a curling masterpiece. Materazzi, the same man who had conceded the penalty, rose above everyone. His header thundered home. Redemption in the space of 12 minutes. 1-1. The game balanced on a knife's edge. Zidane and Pirlo duelled for rhythm, each painting their own symphony on the pitch. Buffon leapt and clawed, while Cannavaro led with unbreakable authority. Every interception felt surgical, every clearance a statement of defiance. The first half was poetry and tension interwoven. The second half became a war of attrition. Italy pushed through Totti's vision and Tony's strength. France countered with Henry's movement and Ribery's spark. By the 70th minute, legs were heavy, sweat mixed with desperation, and yet, not one player yielded an inch. When the whistle blew for full time, the score remained level. 30 more minutes. 30 more minutes that would define careers, shape legacies, and echo for generations. Extra time began with cautious possession, but then, a moment no one could have foreseen. In the 110th minute, Zidane drifted into the box. A cross came in. His header, powerful and precise, was destined for the top corner. Buffon reacted with impossible reflexes, springing upward to claw it away. The save was supernatural, the save of the tournament. Cannavaro roared approval. Lippi exhaled, and then the world changed in an instant. Moments later, as play drifted to midfield, Zidane exchanged words with Materazzi. Cameras didn't catch it at first, only the aftermath. Zidane turned, took 2 steps, and drove his head into Materazzi's chest. The stadium gasped as the French captain, the icon of a generation, was shown the red card. The final act of his footballing life ended not with grace, but with fury. The image was seared into history. Zidane walking past the World Cup trophy on his way down the tunnel, his head bowed. France, now without their leader, retreated. Italy pressed cautiously but with belief, but no goal came. And so it came to the one thing that defines champions and shatters hearts: penalties. Cannavaro gathered his men in a circle. Buffon placed a hand on his shoulder. "We've come too far to fail now," the captain said. They looked one another in the eyes, 10 men who had endured scandal, pressure, pain, and nodded. Pirlo stepped up first. Calm. Conversion. 1-0. Sylvain Wiltord replied for France. 1-1. Materazzi, fearless despite everything, fired his in. 2-1. Trezeguet, the man who'd beaten Italy in Euro 2000, struck next. His shot hit the bar, bounced down, and out. The crowd exploded. Buffon leapt, fists raised. It was poetic justice, 6 years in the making. De Rossi, Del Piero, all converted flawlessly. And then it was Fabio Grosso, the unlikely hero from Palermo, who walked forward. The man who'd sent Italy to the final with that curling strike in Dortmund now had the chance to crown them champions. He placed the ball, inhaled deeply, and stared at the goal. The world held its breath. A short run, a left-footed swing. The ball glided into the corner, beyond Barthez' reach. The net rippled. Italy erupted. Grosso collapsed to his knees, tears streaming. Buffon sprinted forward, screaming. Cannavaro lifted his arms, overwhelmed. The bench emptied, the blue wave crashing onto the pitch. Italy were world champions. The celebrations in Berlin were nothing short of euphoria. Cannavaro, drenched in champagne and emotion, hoisted the trophy high. Above his head, the golden glow reflecting off his tear-streaked face. Around him, teammates sang, laughed, and embraced. Gianluigi Buffon wept openly. Francesco Totti, often stoic, smiled like a child. For Marcello Lippi, it was vindication of everything: his faith in rotation, his trust in unity, his refusal to bow to external chaos. In a post-match interview, he said quietly, "They've shown what it means to be Italian. They've shown heart." Across Italy, the country that had been divided by scandal was united again. The streets of Rome, Milan, Naples, and Turin overflowed with blue shirts and tricolor flags. Fireworks lit the night sky. For once, the word Italia meant joy again, not shame. Fabio Cannavaro, whose leadership had been monumental, was later awarded the Ballon d'Or, the first defender in over a decade to win it. His performances throughout the tournament were near perfect. He didn't commit a single foul in the final, not one. Buffon, whose saves had kept Italy alive at every stage, was named the tournament's best goalkeeper. Pirlo, with his effortless creativity, was awarded man of the match in the final, and the entire squad, from veterans to role players, returned home as heroes. But beyond the medals, beyond the celebrations, the victory meant something deeper. It restored faith. The calciopoli scandal still unfolded in courtrooms, clubs still faced punishment, but the players had done something extraordinary. They had separated the game from the greed. They had reminded Italians that football was not about corruption or politics, but about artistry, unity and resilience. In the weeks that followed, the players scattered back to their clubs. The glow of triumph slowly gave way to reality. Juventus was relegated to Serie B. Many of its stars, Buffon, Del Piero, Camoranesi, chose to stay, an act that made them folk heroes in Turin. Cannavaro and Zambrotta moved abroad, carrying Italian excellence with them. Lippi stepped down as national team coach at the peak of his powers, saying, "I have nothing more to ask from life." His replacement, Roberto Donadoni, inherited a side transformed by glory. But 2006 was more than a trophy year, it was a turning point. The generation that won in Germany symbolized the end of one era and the uncertain dawn of another. In the years to come, Italian football would struggle to replicate that magic. Yet the memory of 2006 remained untouchable, the standard, the myth, the masterpiece. Every World Cup since, the echoes of that summer linger. Grosso's curl, Cannavaro's roar, Buffon's saves, Pirlo's elegance, Totti's redemption. They are immortalized in the collective memory of a nation that found pride in its game again. In retrospect, the story of Italy's 2006 World Cup triumph is not just about victory, it's about identity. It's the story of how football can mirror life, messy, uncertain and full of redemption. When Italy entered that tournament, they carried scandal, shame and doubt. When they left, they carried a trophy, but more importantly, a truth, that resilience is the purest form of greatness. It's easy to forget how fragile that balance was. A missed penalty, a mistimed tackle, a referee's call. Any one of those moments could have rewritten history. But fate favored the brave, and Italy was nothing if not brave. Marcello Lippi often said later that his proudest moment was not lifting the trophy, but watching the players celebrate with each other. They weren't thinking of themselves, he said. They were thinking of each other. That unity, forged in controversy, tested in adversity, proven in victory, became the hallmark of that team. The images endure. Cannavaro lifting the World Cup beneath a shower of confetti, Buffon screaming. Into the night, Grosso collapsing in disbelief, Zidane's lonely walk into the tunnel. Together, they tell the full story of football's complexity, its beauty, its brutality, its redemption. For Italy, it was not just a win, it was a resurrection. A reminder that even when darkness seems absolute, the light of belief, in oneself, in teammates, in something greater, can still break through. And so, when the final whistle of 2006 echoes through time, what remains isn't just the scoreline, but the spirit. A spirit that says, scandal may shake you, but it cannot define you. Criticism may surround you, but it cannot contain you. When the world doubts you, the only answer worth giving is victory. Italy answered, from scandal to supremacy, from doubt to destiny, from despair to glory. And in doing so, they didn't just win a World Cup, they reclaimed their soul. Today, nearly 2 decades later, that night in Berlin still stands as one of the greatest redemption arcs in sporting history. Every replay of Grosso's penalty, every slow-motion shot of Buffon's roar reignites the same emotions. Pride, relief, joy. For younger fans, it's a legend. For those who lived it, it's a memory carved into their hearts. And for Italy, the eternal Azzurri, it's proof that the game they love most can still heal the deepest wounds. Because sometimes, football isn't just sport, it's salvation. And if this story moved you, if the echoes of the World Cup still make your heart beat a little faster, stay with us. More journeys, more legends, more moments that shape the world's game are still to come. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join this growing community of football storytellers, because the past is never just history, it's the heartbeat of everything still to come.